Excited to have our next guest on air. Her name is Shereen Dindar. She's from a small little dorpie called Brayton, but she's an amazing woman, and she practices as a life guidance mentor and human behavior education specialist. She's also an international public speaker and author. She conducts workshops, seminars, and one-on-one breakthrough sessions. So much to cover, but we ain't going to have enough time to talk about everything I'd like to unpack. I have invited her back again, perhaps in the next 2 or 3 months' time. When she comes to Johannesburg, she'll join us to talk some more. This time around, I want to focus on her book. It's called I Was Hijacked and I'm Grateful. And this is what the cover of the book looks like. I kind of wonder, how is it when people go through a traumatic or life-changing event? What is it? What is that one element, that defining factor that separates them, amazing people like Shereen, separates them from people like us who are just kind of stuck in a dark hole? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Julie. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure entirely. You've heard my opening statement. Mm-hmm. What is that certain something that differentiates you from me, allowing you to move forward and be in a place or a space of eternal gratitude?
Okay, that's a lovely question. So basically, yes, you know, as we were talking earlier, you are in a dark space and you're there and you think to yourself, how am I ever going to get out of this dark space? And then, you know, you allow yourself to stay there for a while because you need to process, you need to go through the elements of whatever you've been through, the trauma. And eventually you realize, I can't do this anymore. I can't stay there. I can't stay stuck.
I can't beat up on myself all the time.
I can't beat up on myself all the time. Is this where I want to be? Is this the victim mentality that I want to be, you know, stay in? And then you just realize one morning you wake up and it takes a lot of energy, Julie. It takes so much of energy to actually stay there. And I think that's what drains you because, you know, they say anything that weighs you down, anything that you haven't equilibrated in your mind, that is not balanced, becomes baggage. And so it's that baggage that weighs you down. And I think for me, it was, you know, it had come to a point where I realized, I don't think I can walk around with this baggage for the next 10 years,
and
20 years.
And stuck in a victim mentality.
No.
We're going to talk about your hijacking. We're going to talk about why you wrote the book. I did, in the introduction, talk a little bit about the type of work you do. Mm-hmm. But who is Shereen Dindar? Okay,
so I wear many hats, but that still allows me to be me. So, alhamdulillah, I started off as an education specialist. You know, English matric teacher, working in the FET department, colleges as education specialist, head of department, and also running an entrepreneurship center for Department of Small Business Development and the college. And so eventually 2 years ago when I did get hijacked, I was actually from, I think, 2006. I was introduced to Dr. Martini through my CEO at the college, and it was actually a gift. And I then became one of his mentors. I mean, well, not his mentors, mentees. Uh-huh. And I'm an advanced student of his, and I'm a Martini facilitator. So all along, I was basically practicing, you know, helping people change perceptions, equilibrate their minds, and get through whatever it is that they were stuck in. Basically, you know, facilitating with Dr. Martini, the breakthrough method. And so about 2 years ago, I got hijacked. And then last year, I decided to, you know, take it to a different level. And I became a registered holistic counselor with the South African Council for Counselors. And I practice now as a talk therapist, taking people through trauma and death and divorce and child abuse, play therapy. So basically just getting, you know, people through whatever it is that's weighing them down.
You were hijacked in Kensington, Johannesburg. Yeah. talk to us about how that unfolded
Okay.
in the moment and post the hijacking, which then led up to this book. But let's just give us a graphic picture of what went down.
Okay, so it was a Friday afternoon, 17th February 2017. And so we, as you know, I live 250 kilometers away from Johannesburg. And I was basically coming to settle my son in, and I brought all his...
Varsity.
Yes,
Okay.
all his lock, stock and barrel.
Right, right.
And I brought like a whole lot of food with, and, you know, very excited. And my daughter was driving because she wanted to drive because she studies in China and she wanted the opportunity to drive. Mother-in-law in the front, daughter in the driving, and myself in the passenger seat. And so here we are, Friday afternoon, get to my sister-in-law's house, get into the driveway.
Kensington.
In Kensington. Get into the driveway. And for some odd reason, Julie, we didn't close the gate.
Ooh.
We didn't. And I don't know why. We all wanted to say, close the gate, but nobody did it. And so here we're expecting my son to pull in, and we hear a car, and we look at them, and we see these guys, a nice BMW, and they drive up. You know, it was like a driveway that you have to turn into our driveway, so they kind of got in there straight. And really, it was like a movie scene. I just remember looking at them. We thought it's new neighbors, and we're like, okay, who are these guys? Oh, some new neighbors. And Julie, I can still remember that moment. My heart still pounds up till today when I think of that moment where I literally, you know, I see them running up that driveway. And
How many guys were there?
There were 3 guys.
And did they have any firearms?
AK-47s.
Oh my goodness me. What, apart from your heart almost jumping out of your body, so to speak,
Yeah.
what was going through your mind?
You know, when I saw them run up with that, you know, that speed, and I heard them mumble something, it was then that I realized I didn't think hijacking, I was like robbery, you know. But for me, it was, you know, it's either fight or flight mode. And for me, it was flight. I literally ran for my life.
What about your children and everyone around you? Did you not even give a thought to them?
I did, Julie, but in that moment...
You were in flight mode.
I was in flight mode. So you see,
and you can't blame because you were in a state of shock.
I was in a state of shock.
Mm-hmm.
I felt my heart pounding. All I knew is I had to get to safety. And yes, I did have moments of regret. I did have moments of guilt. But I had to work through that because now in hindsight, I understand, I know why I did what I did.
And there's no shame in, you know, you having reacted the way you did. Like you say, it's flight or
Fight.
freeze.
Yes.
You know, fight, flight or freeze.
Freeze, exactly.
So it's one of those, and you chose the one that just kind of came to you immediately. What happened to your children and your mom-in-law that were in the car as well?
Okay, so my daughter, obviously being young, decided it was fight mode.
Ooh.
So she jumped back into the car and she decided, I don't know what she was thinking, but she probably thought she would fight them. My mother-in-law was still in the car. My sister-in-law went around the car to go and help my mother-in-law get out. But by that time, the 2 guys had already come up the driveway with those AK-47s. I ran into the garage and I hid behind another car, and I couldn't see anything literally, but my daughter for her it was very traumatic in the sense that, you know, they put a gun to her head, they were pulling her, threatening to kill her, telling her to leave, to come with them. The other guy went around to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and, you know, they were looking for the key. They wanted the
car keys.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so who had them?
My daughter had given it to her because she was going to park it for us in such a way that it's out of the way. You know, because it's her driveway, so she knows how to do that. And so she had it. And, well, when they found it, you know...
Was anyone hurt in the encounter?
No, alhamdulillah, nobody was hurt. It was when my daughter was having a fight with them, you know, a wrestling fight, you know. I think she had her wallet in her one hand and she had a parcel in the other. And when her wallet fell, that's when she took the opportunity to basically make a run for it. And he did hurt her a little bit, and she ran and she found me around the corner, and I just remember her saying, "Run, Mama, run."
So they then took the car and they made off with everything that was in the car, all your belongings, and they were gone.
Yes.
Thankfully, nobody was hurt. What happened right after that? And the reason I want to unpack all of this is, sadly, very sadly, it's the times we're living in. And you kind of hear almost every second, third person or family or someone in the community that has experienced either a home invasion, a robbery, or a hijacking. And we know, common sense tells us how we should be careful, but sometimes common sense is not around when you are surprised by a group of people with guns.
So what happened after that is my mother-in-law and sister-in-law they took them and told them to sit down. They took what they wanted from my sister-in-law. They got into the car.
They didn't go into the house at all?
No, and that is the reason why I did not decide to go upstairs, because I was afraid if they see there's a way, to get up, they'd probably follow me. And when I heard my daughter say, "Run," that's when I opened my eyes. I heard my mother-in-law praying. I continued praying as well. I did stand up at one stage to see what was happening. I saw his AK-47, and I think he mumbled something. And I remember, Julie, it was so, when I look back, I clearly remember at that one moment, when they say, "Submit to the will of Allah." I clearly remember putting my hands over my head, closing my eyes, and I submitted.
The Shahada.
I just said, whatever happens.
Right.
Yeah, probably that too. But I just let go. And it was at that moment where I heard her, and I followed her, and I heard my sister-in-law scream, "They took the car." And we ran up, and we decided to phone. I couldn't. I was totally out of it. My daughter had to grab the phone from me, make the phone calls. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law followed. And there we are.
Very frightening, very traumatic, but very surreal at the same time.
Absolutely.
You then decided at some point that you're going to write a book about this. But before we get to the book, what happened next? How did you guys calm down and kind of take stock of the situation?
It was crazy. I clearly remember my daughter screaming because my nephews were in the house, but they didn't hear a thing. And so I heard her scream. We phoned. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were in the house. After my daughter had made that call, she fainted.
Oh.
And, she just passed out. And here we are. So trying to keep calm, trying to get her to wake up, trying to get hold of my son not to come right now in case they're still somewhere. And then, yes, the police came on. I think we, alerted them, and we made all the necessary phone calls. And then we were in shock. I can remember all the emotions. I can remember the tummy ache. I can remember the heart pounding. I can remember that nauseating feeling.
And the anger.
Oh, my goodness. It's like mixed emotions. It's like you're thinking, did this really happen?
How dare they?
How did, really? And so, you wait for everything to settle down, and then you realize, okay, but maybe I need to be strong. Maybe I need to now get a hold of myself. So nobody's eaten. Let me give them some food. Let me give them, we always have
Try and go into almost regular mode.
Yes.
Because the regular mode, the tea or the food's going to make everything right.
Absolutely. And then when my daughter came around, my mother-in-law always says, some sugar water, So I quickly went for that, gave everyone some sugar water. And then we sat down and we tried to track the car, and we did manage to track it down.
But it must have been stripped, I'm sure.
Yeah, not too bad, but we actually found the car late that night. We actually went and found it and managed to, do all the necessary things that we had to do.
But I suppose all your baggage and all the stuff that you brought for your son, everything was gone.
Everything. You know what was the funny part is, I wasn't so worried about the suitcases that I had, all his clothes, all the linen, all the towels, our suitcases, our handbags. my daughter's phone was inside, and that's how we managed to track the car. What got to me was the cooler bags of food.
Let's go for an ad break. Isn't that where our hearts are always at? The food that we prepare with so much love for our families, and all the food was taken away. Don't go away. We'll be back in a short while to continue our fascinating discussion with the lovely Shereen Dindar. I Was Hijacked and I'm Grateful is the title of the book by Shereen Dindar, and she talks about the gratitude leadership. Shereen, after this awfully traumatic event in your life, do you believe at any stage that who you are, the craft that you practice, you're a coach, you're a motivational speaker, a guidance mentor, etc., that perhaps helped you heal quicker, perhaps?
I would definitely say so, Julie, because initially I struggled, I won't lie. So basically I had to go for trauma stress reduction therapy. And so I went for trauma stress reduction therapy for a week. And, that kind of helped me to get through, using a different methodology.
What is that methodology? Just give us a taste of it.
Okay, so I'm also trained in trauma stress reduction therapy as a holistic counselor, basically taking you through the motions of what happened. And, there's different techniques and methodologies. So you can talk about your story, and the therapist takes you through the different steps of what happened. So you basically go back and you go into the story, but then eventually you tell your story so many times that eventually it becomes a story, nothing more than a story.
Right, but what about if you go into this type of therapy very soon after the event? Isn't it more traumatic for you?
It depends on the person. So I wouldn't say that each person is different. So some people need time. Some people would take longer than usual to say, let me go and get help. Some people would think, you know what, I can't deal with this. Let me go and get help immediately. I think I probably took a week, and then I went for this trauma stress reduction therapy. And yes, your question was, did it help me as a DiMartini facilitator, as a talk therapist?
Did it lessen the trauma for you, or?
I think it did, because immediately after it's easy to say, I know how to deal with this, but when you're in it, you also need that outside support.
So you can't be objective in your own
absolutely.
life. How did your family recover? Your sister-in-law, mom-in-law, daughter, etc.
So each one deals with it differently. My mother-in-law, she chooses not to talk about it. She chooses to just, it's the reminders are, a bit too
painful,
traumatic and painful for her. And you got to respect people.
Of course.
My sister-in-law, she would talk about it. She's stronger, and she kind of dealt with it in her own way. My daughter, on the other hand, up till now, she refuses to go and get any therapy, because she feels that's her way of dealing with it.
And this is 2 years later.
This is 2 years later.
And obviously for you, the therapy did help.
Yes,
You then went on and decided to write the book, I Was Hijacked and I'm Grateful. After how long after the event did you decide to do this? And do you think that this was also a healing process, writing the book?
Yes, so this is interesting. The book story is quite interesting. So after that stress reduction therapy,
which was a week after.
Yes. Then what I had done is, my daughter studies in China. She studies abroad, and she had to leave literally in the week after the hijacking, and it was very traumatic for her. So I had my therapy, and I decided to follow suit and just be with her and support her. So when I was there in China, I kind of took a sabbatical. It was, healing for me to be away from South Africa and the fear of being in South Africa, because I just felt safer in China. And it was then that I sat down, and because I'm a talk therapist and DiMartini facilitator, I used the methodology. I used what I'm trained in to equilibrate my mind. And I sat down and I literally had to walk my talk, practice what I preach. And that's when I did the methodology on myself, taking myself through the motions, which took me about a month. And as I was making my notes and as I was writing down, because the methodology we use is when I take people through whatever
journalize.
Whatever I kind of, whatever issues people are experiencing, trauma, whatever. So I take them through a process where I show them whatever has happened to you, how can you, in hindsight, be grateful for the outcome?
Wow. Okay.
And that's when I was journaling, like you said, I kind of realized, okay, but these are so many blessings in the crisis, but I just didn't see it. And that's when, Allah Ta'ala says, with difficulty comes ease. And we don't realize, actually, Julie, within that difficulty, there is ease.
Now, alhamdulillah, I mean, look, as you were talking about the guys with AK-47s, I was thinking one of you could have been killed, all of you could have been killed. Yeah. Your daughter might have been kidnapped, never to be found again. So so many horrible possibilities that could have come out of that. Mm-hmm. So I hear what you're saying about being in gratitude, and as Allah tells us, with every difficulty comes the ease. Alhamdulillah. So it took you a month to write this down, and as you were journalizing, you were seeing just how blessed you guys were, that you were saved from a far greater calamity.
Absolutely, and that's when I always wanted to write a book. So I figured my hijackers were the catalyst.
Right.
They got me to stop procrastinating, and I found a story. I had a story, but that's obviously just making light out of it. But in the sense that when I journaled, that's when I realized I did, before I left on my journey, make dua. I did make my salah. I actually asked Allah Ta'ala, protect me. And that is what Allah Ta'ala did.
Absolutely.
I was protected. And so as I, made my notes, I realized, okay, so here's a story. And when I found all the blessings in my crisis, and I found, because they say whatever your mind and your body experiences, your soul can be grateful for. Absolutely. And that's when I decided to write this book. And also in my book, Dr. John DiMartini has written the foreword, because it was literally taking his work and what I use on my clients when I do my talk therapy, putting that knowledge into practice, applying it. And so I've put some guidelines down there, and I wrote my story, and alhamdulillah, and that is why, and if you ask me now, that title, I truly am grateful, because I wouldn't change it. We are taught as Muslims that be grateful for what is as is. Do not impose man's will on divine will. And that is the outcome. So it wasn't as if I made dua and Allah didn't accept my dua. Allah knows the outcome of whatever is going to happen. It's already in your taqdeer. It is already going to happen. However, those hijackers had free will. So it wasn't as if Allah Ta'ala told them, go and hijack her. So they had the choice of free will, but Allah already knew the outcome. And that's where I realized the power of dua. I realized the weapon that we have to use.
And the power of shukr. Alhamdulillah.
Oh, alhamdulillah.
I was hijacked, and I'm grateful. I haven't read the book, but just looking at the title, I would ask the question, I'm sure you get this question all the time, what are you grateful for?
So I am grateful for the event happening, because I grew as a person. My growth was phenomenal. I had this...
How did it change you as a person?
Okay, so I mean, it wasn't as if I was taking life for granted, but it's just the little things. So yes, we have this immense bond and love for our loved ones, but I don't take things for granted in the sense that, I'm fiercely independent. So there are times when I would say, I'm going here, I'm doing this, but now I would take the opportunity of asking my family, wouldn't you help me? Wouldn't you support me? And I realized the beauty of unity, of bonding. I realized how little things matter, how when we pull for each other. I realized, yes, the power of dua. I realized how as a person, where you put things off. Also, I think I've written if you see in my book, you'll see there's a thank you letter to my hijackers, because I felt that they took away my sense of security. But I've been taught in my methodology as a holistic counselor, when I counsel people, I remind them, don't judge, because whatever you're judging is a mirror reflection of what you have in yourself. So I learned not to judge people. So whatever it is that they had to do, they did. And that was the outcome. But I'm not here to judge them. And
you're not trying to get back at them if ever you come face to face with them again. We've come to the end of the interview. Who should read the book?
Well, anybody and everybody who wants to get insight into life and to realize that, life is not about the blame game. My mentor, Dr. John DeMartini, always taught me, take no credit, give no blame, keep focused on your chief aim. So, if you want to understand that life is not about getting stuck there in that victim mentality, and that if you don't want to age, and if you want to curb the aging process, then don't allow baggage to weigh you down. So if that's where you are, get hold of the book and read it.
Wonderful talking to you. I can't wait for you to come in again in a couple of months' time when we can talk about other issues. Thank you indeed for making the long trek all the way from Brayton to come and talk with us. Jazakallah.
Shukran for having me.
Lovely to have met you. That was Shereen Dindar talking about her book, I Was Hijacked, and I'm Grateful. And she emphasizes the issue around being in a constant state of gratitude. Alhamdulillah.